Requesting all guests to be kindly seated, please. If somebody is outside, kindly come back. So welcome back. I will request once again Ms. Kavita Mahato, Business Head, Tata Steel Ashiana, to kindly come up on stage to moderate the second panel discussion, which is on the perspectives of the established brands on D2C. I would also request the panelists, Mr. Devaditto Chaudhuri and Mr. Sairam Subramanian, to kindly come up on stage. Their introduction will be done by Kavita. Over to you. Thank you.
Sorry. Hi, is it working? Can you guys hear me? Okay. So first of all, I wanted to apologize for inflicting myself once again on all of you. Very sorry about it, but it's all Swarnali's fault. So you all should sort of just take it up with Swarnali. And then I hope all of us had great lunch. The food was really great. Which is again thanks to Swarnali. So you decide whether you want to berate her for bringing me again, or thank her for very good food that she organized. But this is just after lunch session. But I'm not worried about it, because we have two stellar panelists, two stellar speakers who are going to really bedazzle you with their insights, if I may say so. Last session was really interesting. It was fascinating. It's great to know what digital, people who are making a success on digital platforms and digital businesses are thinking and doing, and how they're actually keeping customer front and center, irrespective of the medium and the route to market that they have chosen. It's great, and of course the opportunity is amazing, and that's why many legacy brands are also now reconciling their business fundamentals with excellent customer experience to ensure that they can also win in this space. We heard Mr. Roy's fascinating presentation in the morning. That was really insightful, and thank you so much for that, Mr. Roy. Today, and it will be very useful for brands like us, right? So I'm from Tata Steel. I head a platform business, but for all of us who belong to legacy brands, it's great to learn from some of the people who have made it a success, coming from that space and moving to digital. And for that, we have a very eclectic duo actually. We have someone who has used their love for food to make really sweet tunes of success, and we have someone, a marketer whose métier is to create and lead such successful brands that they are household names. First, Devaditto Chaudhuri, the MD and founder of Chowman. All of us, I think most of us are from Calcutta, so we cannot pretend not to know about it, right? The naam hi kafi hai. Plus, Out 1590 and Chapter 2, his other babies, which you should also check out. Devaditya's not just name is familiar, but also his face. And the reason being his recent debut on Disney Hotstar, where his brand featured as the first ever episode of Brands of Tomorrow. So his is a brand which is not just successful today, but is also promising a bright future. So thanks for joining us today, Devaditya. By the way, he has just carved out time for us today, and he was telling me that his rock band Lucky Shara is performing in US, and he's leaving for US tomorrow. So a big round of applause for someone who is bringing both, like we bong say, Lucky and Saraswati together, And next up is Sairam Subramanian, again, an equally fascinating personality, a marketer who has made it a habit to create and lead successful brands. His expertise has touched all of us, although many of us are meeting him for the first time, because we've used the brands that he has inspired, led, and made a success of in India. I'm talking about brands like Clinic Plus, Dove, Lakme, Tresemme, etc. All of these amazing brands, household names, iconic brands, I should say. And now, after having done that, making it a habit, being in rural marketing, leading one of the HUL's most known initiatives in India, which is Shakti Channel, he has moved on to creating a slew of not just one or two, but an entire range of digital first personal care brands for HUL. Names like Love, Beauty and Planet. The young women here will certainly know about the brands. Simple, Acme Squad and Find Your Happiness. So we are really happy that you have joined us today, Sairam. We have found happiness for that reason. Thank you so much. And let's move to the questions. First question is to you, Sairam. From HUL, I hope it's working here. From HUL, there has been so many legacy brands which are so successful. And you've led that, and now you're leading the D2C. What is the key difference, or what are the key differences which sets a D2C brand aside from a legacy brand, apart from each other?
I think the most simple answer is the age of the brand. If I have to be very honest, I think, but if I have to fundamentally break it down, a legacy brand typically was a brand that is more than 10 years old, started itself in an era where digitization was not where it is today, and hence most of the mental reach happened in traditional channels and most of the physical reach happened offline. And a D2C brand is typically much younger, started in the digital age where most of your target consumers are having a majority of their consumer journey online, and they're also probably buying online, right? So you could be digital first in your approach to both mental reach and physical reach and engaging with your consumer. I think that's the fundamental difference. It's as much about time as it is about the method to the madness. I think that's, to me, the fundamental and the simplest answer I can think of.
No, thanks for that. I think that makes a lot of sense. But tell me, I'm a bit curious. We talked about so many brands just now, right? And those are just I wouldn't say not even a percent of what HUL has created in terms of legacy brands. The kind of successful brands you have is an envy of all marketers. Why not simply go to digital with them? Why create new digital first brands?
Okay, so I think I want to separate out, there are two different aspects here. One is going digital and one is creating new brands. And I want to bring that differentiation, right? To answer the question first, I think today being on digital or going digital is not an option. Every single brand has to be online because that's where the consumers are. That's where the consumers are consuming content. That's where the consumers are buying, a lot of them, especially in the premium end. So I don't think any brand has the option today of not being online. So every single brand of HUL is online today. Whether it is a mass brand or whether it is a...
I would just like to add that I believe Lakme is one of the most successful digital brands in the digital space. So HUL is killing it both ways.
Yeah, I think the fundamental difference is on the question of why new brands. I think HUL has always had a portfolio transformation, premiumization, market development has always been a critical lever for growth for most organizations, including HUL. And I think you need to keep creating new brands or new propositions to cater to the varying needs of consumers, the ever-evolving consumer. That's one aspect of it. The other aspect is digitization, which again, I think going back to my previous answer, I mean, I'll give you an example of hair care. Tresemme was a brand that we launched in 2013. In that era, when digitization was not so evolved, of course, while digital was a part of the mix, the brand had to do traditional marketing. The brand had to go offline, omni from day one. But when we launched Love Beauty Planet 3 years ago, a majority of Love Beauty Planet's TG was online, consuming content online, buying online. So we had the option of not going offline and actually having enough scale and ability to build yourself online, establish brand market fit, and then eventually go offline to further expand your brand. I think that's the context. I don't think it's about creating brands. It is a house of brands anyway, and I think that's going to continue forever. I think the context will keep changing in terms of whether you're going digital first today, but you couldn't do it 15 years back as a consumer brand. I think that's the difference in my head.
You're right. So it is also about consumer, and like you rightly put, it is not about. I think that's a great insight. That it's not about going digital. That's not the point. The point is where your consumer is and what is the need that you're trying to cater to. That said, again going back to HUL's legacy of creating a fascinating channel network, right? Um, and now you're trying to build these digital first, where the channel. I don't know whether it will come in picture sometime or not, but that's for the future. Both the channels, like traditional and digital, they have their own puts and takes, isn't it? So there are certain efficiencies that a digital channel brings, whereas there are certain cost advantages traditional channel could bring. How do you decide? You know, consumer apart, of course, consumer is centric, but even in terms of running P&L for a brand, how do you decide which is the right mix, what to do first? How do you strike a balance there?
Yeah, I think again going back to fundamentals, right? Where's your consumer? What does she want? Creating brands and products that solve a real consumer need. Building brands that consumers love. Creating great advertising. I think that is fundamentally critical whether you're doing digital marketing or traditional marketing or whatever. I think that's what drives business. And I think things like cost of acquisition, etc., are a function of that. I don't think it is a function of the channel. There are differences, but I think the fundamentals of business doesn't change whether you're digital first or offline first. However, what the one key difference I see in the digital first approach is the kind of data and insights and the immediacy with which you get consumer data and how you use it to serve the consumer better. I think that was something the traditional channels or offline channels never offered, right? We used to rely on consumer research to find out how consumers perceived our brands. But today you can literally, over a period of an hour, somebody bought it and you speak to her and you get to know what was the experience, how was the experience. I think that difference, the data that it brings is the intimacy that you have with the consumer today because you're directly selling to the consumer. That difference is that's where I see the difference. But the fundamentals of business, I don't see the difference the way I see it. I think it remains the same. The principles of how you build a brand and drive a business doesn't change in my case.
Absolutely. But I think just to probe a little bit more on that, the point that you talked about, the data part. One is data, yes, and also go to market, the time to go to market. The way we used to design pilot in those old days, we are giving away our age, but you know, it's like you decide a territory and you go there and then you take the learning, and now you can do, you can design multiple pilots and run it in a very A/B testing sort of scenario. Could you speak a little bit to that, Sairam, given you have 2, 3 brands, 4 brands, and in fact, if you look at HUL, there are so many brands which are digital first. How are you leveraging that, which digital
in terms of channel expansion and how you, just clarifying, if you're talking about D2C first versus omni-channel, is that the question or?
We'll come to that. But my question was more like, how are we leveraging the capability that the feature of digital, which allows you to go to market faster, test faster, fail fast, etc.
Yeah, absolutely. I think the entry barrier that you have to launch a brand online is lower than ever, right? And 15 years back, if you had to launch a brand, like somebody was talking about in the morning, you needed a sales system, you need a distribution system, there's an entire supply chain that you have to create. But today, I think some of those things have been democratized. You can launch a brand. If you think of an idea today, you have a product tomorrow, you can launch it day after tomorrow, right? And 4 days later, you already got the consumer signal on whether the product is working or not, and question on whether you want to pivot or you want to scale. I think that the speed and the agility with which you today can test something online, learn, and then potentially scale offline, we've never had that option before. And I think today digital gives you that option. It's much faster, much more agile, and you can do small. I think the ability to do small is what digital really helps you with. It's quite difficult in the traditional world on how you would do that at a very cost efficient manner.
Super, thanks. And talk from small to now going big. Devaditya Chowman started really, I think, just like one outlet, and now you're featured as the brands of tomorrow. And for a reason, right? So, by the way, it is available on Disney Hotstar for anybody who wants to see it. But please see it on your own peril, because once you see it, then you will feel like you won't be able to help yourself and end up ordering from Chowman. So you're just giving more business to Devaditya. So Devaditya, the question to you is, a lot of hard work, would have gone in building this brand, right? And starting from a legacy restaurant to making it digital first. Would you share some of the details with us?
Good afternoon, everyone, and thank you, Kavita. Thank you, BCCI, for inviting me to this wonderful event. Well, when we talk about hard work, everyone talks about hard work and they miss the fun element of it. So, of course, there's no substitute to hard work. For me also, when I started, there were a lot of hindrances. And in my initial days, the most, what do I say, the most problem, the only problem that I was facing in my initial days to retain the manpower. Because I had just a small restaurant with a very small premises and I couldn't convince the chefs to come and work with me. Every day I used to get a new chef, the next day they would have gone away. So that was a time that I was really struggling to retain the manpower. Next was, sometimes I was acting as a cashier, sometimes a delivery boy, and sometimes, after the entire day's work, I would, drive my only 7 staffs which I had, drive them back home. So there were a lot of, hard work definitely have gone, but I didn't miss the fun element of it because being a foodie myself, I always wanted to do this business. And, there was a lot of fun because I was enjoying every moment of it. And, when I used to come home late at night at 1 o'clock, I used to smell like a chicken. My body used to smell of chicken, fishes. I was not allowed in my bedroom by my wife. But I still enjoyed every bit of it because I was so passionate in doing so. And even now when we have 45 restaurants running, and I'm enjoying the entire trip of it. So that's what it is.
Thanks. So, going from 1 to 47 and from one brand to 3, and I don't know, who knows how many more, cannot happen unless you have strong consumer insights. So, what have been your insights behind Xiaoman and also behind Out 1590?
Well, before talking about consumer insights, I will just give you a brief background. So I was a musician and I used to travel all over the world with my band Lokichara, and the sole agenda for me traveling was not only performing but to visit various restaurants in those places and to taste the food. And way back in 2007, I got an exposure in one of the most popular radio stations in Kolkata, where I was hosting a show called Khete Khete Shono every Thursday, where I used to talk about all the unusual eateries in Kolkata, in India, in any part of the world I was traveling. And I was a foodie from childhood, so I always wanted to open something of my own. So when I planned, finally, I was ready to open my first restaurant. I had limited finances. And as you know, for any startups way back, 13 years back, it was very difficult. The ecosystem has changed now, but then it was quite difficult. So I was just thinking, like, there were already so many restaurants, so many Chinese restaurants. See, in Calcutta, you're from Calcutta, right? So I'm sure you have been to Tangra. So Tangra had a lot of Chinese restaurants. In Calcutta, you had standalone Chinese restaurants too. So how do I enter the market? So the consumer insights, the customer insights. So I am a big fan of Alfred Ford, who is the inventor of Ford automobiles, and he used to say that he wanted to democratize automobile. So he would sell a small Ford car also, and a high-end Ford Mustang kind of a vehicle. So I thought my dictum should be to democratize fine dining and to sell fine dining food at a very affordable pricing. When I studied the market, I found out the middle class society, not only in Calcutta or in India, any part of the world, they are the most important market for any product. And I found out that in Calcutta you had one level of restaurants, on one segment of restaurants, and you had those fine dining restaurants. Even if the middle class, they have money to go to any fine dining restaurant, they will think twice because they will feel, how do I wear, what do I wear, how do I handle the crockeries and cutleries, how will people judge me, even if they have money. So Xiaoman was an answer to that. So all my outlets, be it a small one or a big one in any part of the country, it is like the food, the crockeries, cutleries, the ambience is at par or even better than any high-end restaurant. But the pricing point is very interesting. Even now, as I speak, you can go to Xiaoman and have a combo meal at just 250 rupees. And you were talking about my customers, I can confidently tell you all of them are sitting here from, I don't know if they're from Calcutta, I don't know anyone who has not tasted my food, chow mein, auth, or, you know. So that was like chow mein, that was the planning behind chow mein, and it worked as a magic. From a 300 square feet restaurant to now one of the most successful, you know, Oriental brands in India. So after 3 years, I started chow mein in 2010. So after 3 years, I told my brother, who was in a different business, who was in a communication business, I told him that I started this business and this is very interesting. We're earning money, and you know, and I could eat a lot of good Chinese food also. So people who knows me, they will be, you know, it will be difficult for them to relate me sitting here right now, because I was an obese guy. I was like 106 kgs. So it took 4 years for me to reduce also. So anyway, so what food, what next brand? So I was doing a brainstorming with my brother. So now bhat mach is a staple diet of Bangalis. It was, but now biryani. Trust me, we have done all the researches. Biryani in Kolkata is a staple diet for all the Calcuttans, not only Bengalis. So we thought we must get into this market. But the biryani kings had already conquered the market. I am a big fan of Shiraz, Arsalan, Armenia, you know, those biryanis, I mean those restaurants. So like we were thinking, what to do? How do we enter the market? So interestingly, these restaurants, even today, if I want to have a biryani, I go to Shiraz. I'm a big fan of them. But somehow, you know, again, there were two segments. One, these restaurants like Shiraz, Armenias, and Zishans of the world. And if you want to go to a premium restaurant, there was nothing in between. You have Dampuks of the world at ITC or a Taj, but there were nothing in between. So these restaurants, they were selling super food, but they lack at the ambience. So I'm sure like you would not like to celebrate your birthday or anniversary going to these restaurants. So we created a third segment, the middle segment, where we had these restaurants which with high-end interiors, the crockeries, cutleries will take you to the era of Wajad Ali Shah, and we positioned it as a premium period dining restaurants. And another interesting thing, in Calcutta way back in 2013 when we started Odd, biryani and Awadhi cuisine was all about chicken biryani, chicken chop and mutton chop, nothing beyond it. So me and my brother was in Lucknow for 2 months, we were doing research, and I can proudly say that we launched Galauti kebab in Calcutta, and which is now one of the most popular kebabs in Calcutta.
And I'm
we
sure
launched
people are
handi
thankful
biryani.
for that.
Oh, great. And we launched handi biryani. So we created that segment, and again it worked wonders. Now those restaurants are still there, but we are one of the highest selling biryani brands of this city.
Thanks so much, Devaditya. Not last, but the next question is, because of which we're having this conversation today is because you have moved from a very legacy model, right, of restaurants, and restaurants leveraging the platforms. All the restaurants are leveraging delivery platforms today, but you moved extreme D2C. And I don't know whether there are other restaurants, there may be a few, but not many, which have opted for such D2C model. You've designed and you've launched the Chow Mein app. Could you speak a little bit about why did you do that when all the restaurants are actually moving to these platforms and scaling with that? Because it must be difficult, right? It won't
Very
be easy.
difficult.
Yeah.
But in 2010, when I first launched my brand Chow Mein, there was only one aggregator, Zomato, and they were not selling food. They were a review platform where you could rate the restaurant. And Deepinder Goyal, who is the founder of Zomato, he's a very dear friend. So he was dealing with me directly. So he didn't have much manpower also. So I was the first restaurant who was listed in Zomato from Calcutta. And I can proudly say now, when we talk in Swiggy and Zomato in both the platforms, we are the highest revenue generator pan-India for these two platforms.
Wow.
From just
That
a small.
deserves an applause.
So Deepinder is a very dear friend. But in 2017, way before COVID, I found out that we were doing a lot of business. The turnover was going up, but somehow the profitability was not happening because they were taking a lot of commission from us. Cost to business, there's something called cost to business. So cost to business with them It is not about the commission, the discounts that you run on the platform, the GST. It was coming to around 36%, which was very high. And for a restaurant who sell food at a very reasonable pricing, so we were hardly left with any profit. So everyone discouraged me, everyone, all my friends from the media, my so-called consultants, they said, don't invest so much in the app because it will not take you anywhere, because there are already so many aggregators doing business. Why do you need an app? So I'm very stubborn. I said, no, I have to, make my own app. I took loan and I invested a lot of money, hell lot of money. The guys who developed Swiggy developed my app. So in 2017, I launched my first, Chowman app. And what I was trying to do. So 35% I was saving because I was not paying commission to them, but I was passing that chunk of it to the customers as discounts. And now we are the only app in India, restaurant app in India, who has 2 lakh active dedicated customers in our app. And I strongly believe because of my delivery, so I have to talk about my delivery system also. I started this delivery system in 2010 with 2 bikers. Now, recently, Economic Times did a story on that. We have the highest number of delivery bikers pan-India. We have around 350 bikers. Though we are in Swiggy and Zomato, but tomorrow if the Swiggy, Zomatos of the world, they shut down, it will not just bother us because they can order from the app with the same features and we'll deliver the food at their place. So now, with this kind of, applications, when I launched, as I said, everyone discouraged me, but then I never knew something called pandemic was coming. I never knew, like we have been hearing about lockdown, we have heard about lockdown in factories, in movies, but a country, a city can have a lockdown. We never thought about it. So when in 2020 the pandemic, they hit India, then of course Swiggy and Zomato, they had their problems, they had their challenges, there was no bikers. We did the most business. And if you see my graph, my career graph, during the pandemic was a time where my entire business changed, my growth happened. And during pandemic, I started my national expansion when everyone was shutting down. So I believe D2C Connect is so important, where you have the control over the data, you have the control over your customers. Now, in any aggregators, we don't get the data. Like we don't know who is having the food. We don't get a feedback. So that's very difficult. If the food is bad, they sometimes review it. But it is not only about bad food. If you're a dedicated customer, you will definitely tell us how we can serve it better, in a better way. So it's very important, D2C.
Yeah. I think the most important part is, like you mentioned, getting to know your customer better. Yeah. Because when you use a platform, you don't get customer data at the unit level.
They mask all the data. They don't share any of the data.
Right, because then they own the data. So doing something like this is worth investing in, because you get the level of customer insights on purchase behavior, patterns, preferences.
Yes. So we exactly know what offers to run. So right now we have 2 lakh dedicated user, and we know the age bracket. So we can see that the trend of ordering during the weekends is mostly from an age bracket of 45 to 55. In the weekdays, evening, students, maybe 16 to 24. So we can run the offers accordingly that would attract them. It's very important. So right now we are present in 4 cities with 2 lakh active users. As a part of our expansion plan, by 2025, we target to hit 4 more cities. Like we are right now in Kolkata, Delhi, Bangalore, and Hyderabad. So we're going to Pune, Bombay, Chandigarh, and Chennai in the next 2 years. I am sure this figure will go up drastically to around at least 10 lakh active users. So I'll have a valuation of my company separately, and the app will be valued separately. So no one understands that. They only think, app karke kya fayda? But it is long term. It is like a blue chip share that you invest in.
Absolutely. And that's a very important pivot you made, and that brings me back to you, Sai, in terms of pivots, right? So when a legacy brand pivots to digital first brand, or legacy organization pivots to digital first brand, there are certain prima facie benefits, some of which Devaditya and you both talked about. But it also, I believe, helps the entire organization in terms of building innovation, efficiencies, etc. Would you share some of the insights from HUL as to how the D2C, the range of D2C brands that you guys have built, has helped the organization? In what way?
Yeah, I think no, it's an absolutely on point question, right? And to be honest, most large organizations that have stayed the test of time have had to make quite a bit of transformation across the value chain through various times or decades that's come in. The latest being, of course, how do you be digital first as an organization? I'll give you a small example, right? So it's the way we started these nano factories as HUL. So if you look at some of our conventional factories are built for mass brands selling at scale, mostly to the offline channel. But when you start looking at the e-commerce business, especially in categories like beauty, where I belong, the assortment is very large. The number of SKUs are large, but the volume ain't so large, right? So creating these nano factories that enable you to make smaller quantities, reduce your innovation timelines drastically, and also improve your agility. I think that was one change I can think of immediately that really helped us build this entire D2C ecosystem as HUL.
Right. So because HUL, because I'm from Tata Steel and Tata's, I can relate, right? So the factories are really large, right? Then ponderous with very involved processes and very difficult to change all of that. When you shift to nano factories, I was reading somewhere and you were telling me that they're actually movable. So you can move the plant. If a certain territory is doing much better and you need your supply chain to be there, you can actually do that.
Absolutely.
So that's a great pivot.
Yeah.
How do you build such capabilities? Like, because these are, like you said, nano is the right word. So nano is a very different capability from scaled up kind of business that legacy brands are used to. So what difference does it take in mindset and in approach to build such capabilities?
Well, like I said, I think most, you're from Tata and there are people from Berger, and I was speaking to a gentleman from Asian Paint. Most large companies have done this to survive and grow consistently over decades. This is not the first time organizations have had to pivot. I think it is in the DNA of most large organizations that have successfully stood the test of time to be able to transform itself across the value chain. And I think it's there in the DNA. It's digital today. It was something else a decade ago. Yes. It was something else 2 decades ago. So I think that these organizations have the DNA to be able to do that and be ahead of the curve. You know, that's what makes an organization stand the test of time.
Absolutely. And if anybody has done that, HUL has done that. Unilever has done that. Let me say it that way. But talking of pivot, because you said talked about the ability to pivot, coming to the biggest pivot of our lifetime, which is pandemic. I was reading about it, and I think also it's mentioned in Brands of Tomorrow, how Chowman continued to remain afloat and actually grew during the pandemic. How did you manage that?
Well, as I said, pandemic changed my life too. So initially when it was 20th of March when the lockdown was announced in 2020, so I was like everyone, I was so kind of taken aback that how can all the restaurants shut down? What will I do with my manpower? That time I had around 1200 resources. So as I said, I'm very stubborn. I decided that I will not close any of my restaurants. So if you remember, if you're like, I'm sure many of you are from Calcutta. If you remember, in Calcutta, everything was shut, but in 2-3 days time, the delivery business started. Because, Rajiv Sinha, who was the chief secretary that time, I went to his house, he was not going to office. I tried and convince him that, delivery business, food delivery cannot stop. Because there are a lot of families, especially the old age guys who are dependent on this delivery system. And the next day he called for a presentation and I presented my entire case. And of course I got benefited, but the entire F&B fraternity in Calcutta got benefited. And within the next 3 days, all the restaurants, they allowed their to start their delivery thing. But what was happening, many restaurants, they never had their delivery system. They were only dependent on their dine-in business. So they were shutting down, people were getting laid off. But I thought that this is the only opportunity, because in our business, if you get enough money, you cannot open 100 restaurants in a day, because it is very difficult to source this manpower. So I thought this is the right time where I should hire people. And during 2001 and 2002, 2000 and 2001, we opened 8 new restaurants. we hired about 250 new manpowers who got laid off from other restaurants, and that was the time I started my national expansion. So pandemic was a different kind of a situation for me, and all the media across the country, they came, they took my interview, that how it, because I was perhaps the only restaurant who were paying salaries on time, the bonuses on time, and we were doing everything with the staff. And but of course pandemic was there were many resources, I mean many employees who were getting affected due to pandemic, and there was a situation there where there was no no place to admit them. So I took 2-3 buildings in Calcutta, entire building, and transformed them to quarantine center. So we had their facility, we had our facility of giving them food, basic medicine, because COVID never demanded a lot of medication in the initial stage. So when these employees saw that when everyone was laying off, I never I always kept holding their hand and gave them those these facilities. So they all came to me, and proudly I can say now my team is rock steady, because in our industry the attrition rate is very, very high. So every second day someone is coming, someone is leaving, but as per the industry standard our attrition rate is way, way, way below. So that was one thing that I could do during this pandemic.
No, that's thanks for sharing that. I think before during lunch we were talking about purpose, and both your brands are quite known for that. I mean, thanks for sharing those initiatives with us, which are quite inspiring. Switching gear to you, Sai, because we talked about, in his case, moving from B&M to digital. In your case, you have moved from B&M to digital. Now, there are brands which are moving from digital to B&M, right? So it's like life is coming full circle. We heard about, with you, Just My Roots shared earlier, how Samiran shared about how Just My Roots is also moving to B&M. And that's a big trend in your industry as well. So I've seen Nykaa doing that, Tata Click Palette doing that, so many other brands are doing that. How do you see that panning out, and do you have any strategies around that for your own brands?
Yeah, see, I think we have to look at it from the context of which category you are in, and in that category, where are your consumers? I think that's the fundamental question. I'll give you the example again of my category, right? And which is premium beauty. There are a sizable number of consumers online consuming premium beauty products, and I think for a brand like that, I think the strategy would can today be digital first, and then as you scale, you have to go offline. I don't think going offline or not is an option in the consumer space. At the least, because the question is when, and the when, I don't think there's one right answer to it. I think it has too many layers of variables that will decide whether it is right after brand market fit, or is it right after a certain scale. There are P&L implications. So I think I wouldn't put a strategy to it. I think it's going to be a different context for different companies in different sectors. But I think brands that are starting online will have to go offline at some point of time in the consumer space, and similarly brands that are offline first had to come online and make a big presence and drive their availability and visibility online, right? I think that's something that's going to continue. But if you talk about some other sector today, let's take a very random hypothetical example of, let's say, a company trying to launch a powder or laundry powder for the mid segment. I really doubt they can do D2C today, right? And they would probably have an omni strategy from day one. They'll probably go offline on day one. Because that's where their consumers shop, and that's where their category is consumed. So I think it's a bit of that. I wouldn't simplify the answer too much. It is quite layered. But yes, I think today for some categories, digital first is a great approach to begin your brand, create brand market fit, scale, and then expand to offline at a suitable later date to further scale your brand and make your brand more available. That would be my 10 cents on that.
Understood. Because what I hear from you is it's wiser probably if you build the omni-channel strategy from day one, because it's just a matter of time, right? So you can sort of sequence them. You can go D2C first. You can do D2C to B2M later, but there is no compartmentalizing. It's quite a fungible space.
Absolutely. I don't think there's one right answer. There are too many other variables that will decide or dictate what is the right answer for you.
Yeah.
And for each business owner, it's going to be a different answer, and
Absolutely.
That's where I am.
So I think we are, sort of coming close to our discussion. So I have one question for both of you, which is actually two questions. So let me first ask you is, what is your growth outlook like? How do you see D2C brands growing in the next, let's say, 5 to 7 years? What factors will drive growth in your categories?
Yeah, I think the fundamentals of growth doesn't change, right? You need to make products that consumers love, brands that consumers love, that solves a real consumer need. You need to innovate ahead of the curve. You need to drive a lot of mental reach. You need to drive a lot of physical reach, right? That principle, whether you're a traditional brand selling brick and mortar or an online brand selling D2C, doesn't change. Having said that, the number of consumers shopping online is only going to go up. And I think we saw some numbers in the morning about 100 million shoppers going to probably 300 million shoppers over the next 5 years. So online is going to be absolutely critical. But the drivers of growth doesn't change to me. I think it is about knowing who your consumer is and how do you make that consumer love your brand. I think that's principally what's going to drive growth for whether you're a startup in a D2C brand or a large
Or a
corporation.
legacy. Yeah, absolutely. What about you, Devaditya? Where do you see growth coming from? I think that is of course the most important factor.
Are you
But
talking about my brand's growth or the entire ecosystem's growth? I mean the D2C.
no, I'm talking about your brands.
Okay. So right now we have three brands like Auth, 1590, Chowman, and Chapter 2. So Chowman is the fastest growing brand amongst the group companies. So we have right now around 35 restaurants of Chowman in Kolkata, Delhi, Bangalore, and Hyderabad. The next 2 years we are planning to open in 4 more cities like Pune, Mumbai, Chandigarh, and Chennai. So we will be available in all the major metros of India, and then we'll go for the valuation and we'll see how it shapes up. For Auth, we are already in Kolkata and Delhi. Will be the growth of Auth is a bit slow because again the manpower is a big issue. So we are a bit slow about it, and hopefully by 2026 we'll try and go public.
Sure.
2026.
Of
That's
course.
it.
Thanks,
Thanks.
for that. And the last question to both of you, something for what our audience can work on is, what consumer trends do you see shaping the future? We've been a lot of them. We have seen a lot of them, and they have been shaping success, whether it's purpose, authenticity, customer experience in the past 4 to 5 years.
So-
Going forward, what are the trends?
So I believe the entire, consumer pattern has changed post-pandemic. So before pandemic, people would love to go to a grocery shop and buy groceries, go to a restaurant and have food. But post-pandemic, these aggregators have definitely given a different meaning to the entire business model. So I believe within the next few years, there will be many other players will come, and or even a grocery, a small vegetable shop in our locality will also go online, and physical contact will be very less, and this online business is going to stay and grow more and more. So we have to prepare ourselves as a business owner, as a customer also, so how to handle the situations in a better way. So we have to prepare ourselves.
Absolutely. Sairam, your
Yeah, no, to add to Devaditya, I think that's one. And the second, I think, I don't want to get category specific on what are the trends in the consumer trends in the category, but for any company or any brand in any industry, I think consumers going forward are more and more going to look at brands with a lens of beyond what the product delivers, or is it efficacious enough. It's going to be through the lens of how it makes a real difference to people, society at large, and environment. Right? I think going forward, and I'm coming from HUL, and I've grown up working on brands like a Lifebuoy, which is not. It was beyond a bar of soap. It was about advocating the habit of hand wash, going to schools every year for decades, and inculcating that habit in that child. I think it's beyond what your product stands for and the efficacy of the product. Or you can talk about Dove advocating beauty as a source of confidence and not anxiety. I think going forward, this ask from the consumer, of expectation from the consumer of brands to be beyond just a product that solves a need to being something that changes lives and societies and environment at large is going to be it's going to be much bigger as we go forward through the decade. And like we say in HUL, I think brands with purpose will last.
Yeah,
think that's-
absolutely. Yeah, thanks for that. And I think it's been strong, it's getting stronger, and it will continue to grow stronger as we move along. We'll open for question now. Any question from anyone? Anyone? What? Okay, there are lots. Okay, yeah. So that gentleman,
Hello.
please.
I'm Dr. Chakraborty Parthasarathi. I'm a professor of an engineering college. This question comes to my mind. A musician turns to be a businessman. I have never heard of it. That is uniqueness of Devaditya. I'm not sure about whether he can disclose the fact that a very popular brand, music brand in Kolkata, Lokki Chhara, whether he does apply the promotion of that brand as well, along with is this, number one. Second thing, which I have found, not only the band, these are also competitive these days, even these spiritual groups, starting from Art of Living to Sadhguru to other, they are also using apps and very huge amount of investment in the marketing side. I do not know whether the Bengali bands are also having that field. Devaditya, if you may disclose the things.
Thank you very much, but I didn't understand the second part of the question. I'll answer the first part of it. So, musician turned entrepreneur, this answer, these questions, the people, whenever I go to any forum, they keep asking me, but I'm doing the same thing. It's like creating new things. So, I am as much passionate as a musician and as an entrepreneur too. So every day, if you come to my restaurants, you'll see something new is happening. So as my band. But if you ask me, in this stage, if you have to call me, recognize me, how would I love to be recognized? As an entrepreneur or as a musician? So definitely as a musician. So, so as you know, for us, this time, particularly during the pujas and this Diwali time, is a peak time of our business, and we do the maximum business from where we earn a lot of revenues. But since I'm so passionate about my band, I'm leaving for my US tour, not tomorrow, on Tuesday. For about 25 days, we are having 8 concerts all over US. So I'll be missing out on all these dates. So my team is handling it, and they are the guys who does everything for me. So my team is my strength, and they handle everything. I am a musician by heart, and I always want to be like that. So that is how it is. Thank you.
This gentleman, please.
Good evening. My question is to both the panelists. As far as online is concerned, I do see customers basically goes to online in line of discounts, both in food and in case of grocery. So I don't know how this model will, survive in near future. How do you see that?
Yeah, I think from a customer point of view, I'm sure, I am going to talk from the brand's point of view. I think from a brand point of view, it is less important as a business to discount, right? It is more about driving value to the consumer, and right price, right value to the consumer is the most important thing. So I don't see discounts as a strategy in the long term. I think it is more of the way certain online customers drive traffic to their app. But in the long term, I see that being less and less relevant. What is going to be more relevant is what consumers want and what brands they want to choose, and that's what those are the brands that will succeed in the long term. If that answers your question, sir.
Thanks. One more question maybe we can take. Anyone? I think that gentleman at the back, he raised his hand. That blue shirt, yeah. Yes.
Hello. Yeah. Good afternoon, everyone, and thanks for this, lovely occasion when we can hear for both of you. And just wanted to know, like we have Chowman and we have, so we are. Personally, I am a big fan of Chowman. So just wanted to know, is there anything like Bengali cuisine restaurants is also coming in future? And also to the other person, I have another question for him. So like, I mean, as the days progresses and the marketing scenarios is changing, so we see the ads targeting the customers is also changing. So, so like, how will be in future targeting the customers regarding to the ads perspective? Thanks.
Thank you very much. To answer the first question, yes. We are coming up with a new brand sometime next year maybe. So it's going to be a very innovative fusion Bengali food which Calcutta has never seen before. The research is on. So me and my brother, like at least in a month, we go to Bangladesh and in some other places to do the research. And hopefully by next year, Poila Boishak, that's the Bengali New Year, will be live with a new brand. And regarding the advertisement targeting the customer, I mean how do we change our pattern, advertising pattern? So advertising has totally changed. So when in my initial days, 13 years back, when I launched the brand, my brands, there was only newspaper advertisement, which was very costly. There was PR, public relations, which was limited. You cannot ask a journalist to write about you every day. But now, thanks to this digital India and this online platforms, I mean the digital platforms, the advertisement is much cheaper and targeted. So if I want to target a particular segment in a particular geography, I can do that at a very, very nominal cost, and still I can get the benefits. So it is changing. Hopefully something else will come up soon. So we are now advertising in other applications, outdoor digital hoardings. Before we used to have only flex hoardings. So to change a flex hoarding, it's again a cost. Now in digital hoardings, in 2 minutes you can change the creative and get a new creative. So entire thing is changing. So let's see what else comes.
No, I second that. I think it is the ability to target a certain cohort of consumers much more sharply versus what we had to do in mass mediums of the past, where it was not as sharp enough what you could do. I think that's the fundamental difference, and the ability to target more sharply is only going to go up as we go forward. I think that's the key difference.
We'll take one last question if there is any. Sorry, that gentleman. Okay.
Good afternoon. My name is Partho. So this is something that I would like asking you, Kavita. May I? So we have heard of paints. We have heard on F&B and also jewelry, right? So my question is, how do we position D2C as a channel or as a method to madness, or in any way possible to connect more customers for the B2B sector, right? And drive customer value. So that's my question to Kavita. Thanks.
Sure, thanks. So actually, thanks for asking that question. Sorry, I didn't catch your name, sir.
My name is Partho.
And you're in some B2B.
Yeah,
business.
I'm with Quaker Houghton.
Okay, sure.
Yeah.
So, there is this myth, I think, where people believe that B2B is not so digital. In fact, the truth is B2B is more digital today. There are enough studies and there are enough instances to actually prove that. It's easier, in fact, to do B2B, D2C, direct to customer in B2B, because for you the logistics become easier to manage, B2B being by definition bulk. Also, their need to drive efficiency and their need to reduce their carbon footprints is forcing them to seek for digital solution. There are many ways in which they are seeking their suppliers, their vendors, partners, to build customer value for not just for them, but also for their customer, the customer's customer. And they are completely looking at revolutionizing the supply chain, which can help in creating value for themselves in terms of cost, in terms of sustainability, and in terms of efficiencies, so that they could pass some of that on to their own customers. In fact, in Tata Steel also, we are developing certain channels which is not really commerce, but in many ways supports the customer in the B2B space digitally. And there has been very good traction on that. I hope I've been able to answer your question. Although I'm from D2C space, B2C space, not so much B2B, but I have a little bit knowledge from Tata Steel. Okay, so I think we are close to, we're really running short of time now. So sorry for anyone whose questions we were not able to take. I think it's been a fascinating quarter of 3 quarters of an hour, where I think, if you look at the previous panel and this one, the writing is quite clear on the wall. It is eventually about the customer. It is about keeping the customer front and center. Their insights around them front and center, and stitch your value proposition, develop your value proposition basis that. When it comes to digital first, it's also about how do you leverage data to understand the customer better and use that to drive innovation, not just for a particular brand, but for the entire organization. And the third piece is, according to me, how do you work with the ecosystem? How do you work not just with the influencer, but the entire ecosystem to make this work? I'm drawing the learning even from the Bojo presentation earlier, where, painters are being brought on digitally, and the value chain, the route to market is stitching together in a very omni way, both the traditional channel and a completely new digital channel. So it is about, like, going back to what our panelists said today. How do you really think differently? How do you innovate? How do you bring different factors together to create a success, a winning proposition, which really addresses one customer need, which is really paramount to them? So being sharp in the value proposition by leveraging technology and by leveraging insights is probably a success secret sauce for success. Thank you so much, Sairam. Thank you so much, Devaditya, for taking out time. It's been, I'm sure it's a busy time for both of you, being the festival season, and Sai has traveled all the way from Bombay to be with us. So a big round of applause to both of them.
Thank you, Kavita, and thank you, Bombay Chamber of Commerce, for this. I think, and thank you to all the other speakers. I'm looking forward to the rest of them. Thank you so much for the event.
I must tell you this, when Shonali was telling me this, this show, this slot was just post-lunch, I was apprehensive because, post-lunch sessions are the most trickiest. I could still see few of the guys, taking a power nap, but, thank you so much. Thank you so much for hearing us. Thanks. Bye.
That was indeed a wonderful session. Really appreciate Devaditya's passion for music that we all know, and you keep it for us still. May I now request Mr. Obhijit Dotto, Manager, Marketing Services, Berger Paints India Limited, to hand over the mementos to our esteemed panelists and the esteemed moderator. We need a group photo. Just be on the stage for a while, please. Act a group photo. Just one group photo, please.